What is going on, Crisis Actors? It is episode 1002, which just sounds weird to say, of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. I am here on this Thursday with my guest co-host for the day. Would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Vara. I am a video game live streamer and entertainment commentator.
And so I was actually on the channel last night with you.
You were?
With it was Vara and Virtue.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked for about 2 hours about everything from AI, basically AI after death, to Jacob Elordi, to video games, to Zachary. We're going to get into some of the same stuff today, are we not?
We are,
yes. We've got, before we even get started, guys, we've got a $20 super chat here from Corey Anderson. Says, Vara Dark, one of the only trustworthy voices left in the video gaming industry. You look lovely. You can only play one video game for the rest of your life. It has to be either Dustborn, Avowed, or Reloaded. Which one are you choosing? You can only pick one.
Trash and trash. I know my options are so vast and wide. I guess I would have to go Avowed because it is slightly less bad than the others.
Okay. I didn't see Concord on there.
I know. Well, nobody can play it anymore, so it kind of makes sense. Yeah, I'll choose that one, and I won't ever have to play any of these games.
And if you have other questions for Vara, you better send in the super chats now. So, guys, here's the other thing. So, last night during the stream, I don't know if you caught this, but my camera randomly went out, and I had to, like, so I had to switch off camera and mic, and then go and, like, unplug, replug in, check everything in the middle while you guys were talking. I'm like, I really hope that it happened for,
we
like...
were just yapping.
Yes, and that's fine. So that happened last night when we were on stream. And I was at home when I was doing that. That wasn't here in the studio. But that had never happened to me before. And it seems like whatever ghost that was, perhaps it's Shane Cashman that's doing this right now. The energy may have carried over today because when we connected, like, your internet was going in and out earlier. So what we are doing today, guys, because Mary is not here, she would say intercession maxing to hope that no tech issues befall us. I am saying that we are just hope maxing today. We are hope and faith maxing that nothing bad happens today and everything works out as planned.
There's a maxing for everything, I guess.
There is absolutely, in fact, a maxing for everything. But we will, you know what? It's all chill. We're going to go with whatever happens today happens. As long as I am, like, announced ahead of time that things could possibly go wrong, it's a lot less shocking when it does. Like, there was one episode where, like, me and Colonel Kurtz, it was all good, everything was perfect leading up to the show, and then boom, like, right as we were doing the intros, her internet went out, and I was like... I was like, chug a 5-hour energy. I'm like, gonna have to do this whole thing alone. The hell with it, guys. So, guys, hit the like button on this video, please, and subscribe to the channel if you are new here and you have not subscribed here yet already. You should also go over and subscribe to Vara's channel over on YouTube as well. Like she said, she does a lot of she does a lot of playthroughs. She has a separate channel for reviews. She also covers a lot of video game content within the industry, and it also crosses over into what we talk about here at Pop Culture Crisis. So they should go over and follow you over there, should they not?
Yes, you should.
Yes, guys. Oh, and it's in the description box, guys, if you're looking to follow our channel there. So what are we getting into today? We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We are going to talk about some video game news, because where else would we go if we were going to get video game news? We're going to talk about the failure of Highguard, and then the reveal of where secret funding came from in this game, which seems to be quite a scandal if you actually think about it, because how games are funded kind of mirrors back to what happens in these circles when people talk about crowdfunding and things like that. The idea of being independent is actually a huge selling point for a lot of, games or movies or anything really at all. Politicians do that now. They sell themselves on the idea that they're not part of the system, that they can do it on their own. And when you get the reveal that some big financial backers seem to be behind it, people start asking questions. So we are going to talk about Highguard. We are also going to talk about the upcoming Resident Evil movie, because there was some very, very concerning news that came out of this interview that said that basically Zach Kreger, whatever you want to say about him, a lot of people hold him in extremely high regard after Weapons and other such releases, saying that he was basically given carte blanche to make that movie, to make Resident Evil the movie, whatever he wanted it to be, and not follow video game canon at all. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about Margot Robbie, who gave a recent interview where she said, she doesn't make movies for critics. She makes movies with audiences in mind. Well, I've done a little bit of research, ladies and gentlemen, to prove that if that is in fact true, She is very bad at it. So we are going to talk about it. Also, Ethan Hawke doesn't know what the hell he wants to do with his, when it comes to his political discourse. Some days he wants to talk about it. Other days he doesn't want to talk about it. So we'll get into that. We got a bunch of other stuff as well. If you're ready, Vara, we will just go. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, let's go for it. Why don't you then first, while we get started, why don't you give everybody a breakdown of the Highguard situation?
So Highguard was a game that was shadow revealed at the Game Awards back in December, and it seemed that they paid a hefty chunk of change to have this game highlighted. It had some Apex Legends and Titanfall 3 developers on it, so it seemed like a pretty good start. And when you are highlighted at the Game Awards, typically you pay about $1 million for a 3-minute ad segment.
So it's like a Super Bowl ad.
Yeah,
okay.
But they put it as the very last video game advertisement of the event, which is usually the biggest announcement, and they went silent on it. Initially, it faced a lot of backlash, and for an entire month, they didn't market the game. A lot of people thought that maybe it was canceled. They released it. They paid some of the largest streamers in the games space to live stream it on release day. And so
do they have to disclose that they're getting paid for that, or do they just...
do?
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Continue.
And on release day, it had 97,000 players in game, which is a lot. That's a pretty hefty chunk of change. And within 24 hours, it dropped 96%. And since then, it's dropped. I think today the average is like 800 players.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
So the game basically ended up being, so there was a large, what felt like fake push because of the ad at the Game Awards and stuff like that. And then from what I'm seeing now, they have discovered that it was not, because they were basically selling this on the idea that this was an independently funded game, and then it came out that Tencent was involved, correct?
Yes, so they had marketed it very heavily as the, of course, studio's first game, but that it was made by a passionate team, it was independent, and they had said that it was funded, but they didn't say to what extent or who funded it. That could technically mean the studio leaders funded it themselves. So they weren't very transparent about it, and now it has come out that yes, Tencent, one of the a very large company and a major investor in a lot of video game companies.
And Hollywood. I mean,
actually,
less these days, but a lot in the early 2010s into the beginning of 2020. There was a lot of Hollywood productions that were being funded by Tencent.
Right, and with video games, I think a lot of people understand that Tencent has a lot of money, and you know, nobody really boycotts video games based on the fact that Tencent is invested typically, but they hid it, which is the major issue. And then they were marketing themselves as independent so that they would get more media coverage, so people would maybe give them a chance, because as you said in the intro, there are a lot of people who want to go out of their way to support independent creators. They're breaking out from the mainstream. They're trying to forge their own path and create what they want. And in video games, we've seen games like Hollow Knight Silksong sell tens of millions of copies, and it's a $20 game made by 3 guys. You have games like Expedition 33, which have the most wins out of all of the video game award shows, and they left a massive company like Ubisoft. So we go out of our way to support indies, but they are not independent, that's for sure.
So do you think that, like, I think that's one of the worst things too, because it's one of the things I talk about on this channel a lot. Like, I will actually bring up to people oftentimes, like,
right,
if you want to sell in this space, and I mean this in the most cynical way possible, is like, I make the joke all the time. I'm like, all I'm looking to be here for you guys is background noise. People oftentimes when we talk about the channel, because they know that this show is a Timcast production, I always make the point of telling them, like, look, I am not looking to sell you on anything. If you want something to listen to at work, because we're live from 3 to 5 p.m., on your way home from work, whatever it is, I always make the joke that it's like, we are your background noise for the day, because the people that do the best in these spaces, they sell you on a mission. They sell you on some type of end goal, something that you have to achieve, or something that they say that you can achieve by watching their content or sharing their content and all that stuff. And I get it. Like, that's, you're trying to make money. That's your job. job. I get it, 110%. But all that does is highlight more effectively how bad it is when somebody lies to you about what that actually means.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do the same thing. I do not tell people to boycott or to buy things. Obviously, if somebody asks my opinion on like Elden Ring, I'd say it's one of my favorite games ever and I'd highly recommend purchasing it. But generally, I don't tell people to boycott or buy. I'm just here to provide information, especially in a time where the access media so often lies, and they also are running defense for a lot of the major companies in the industry who are paying them the most amount of money.
Yeah, and like for me, I can't even call my reviews when I watch movies and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't even like the idea that it's my job to tell you whether you should like this or not, because to me, so much of it is subjective that I don't even like telling people like, you know, you shouldn't go see this. Because what does that mean? Like, you might have completely different tastes than what I have for movies. Like, so what does my opinion really mean about it? So I'm telling them more that this is what I thought of it, you know, and then you can go back perhaps and look at the old stuff that I've reviewed and kind of base that against the stuff that you have seen, and then maybe gauge what you think of my opinions based on past reviews. That way you can decide whether that's the type of thing you want to use as some type of advice to go and watch a movie, or in your case, play a game, which is why I think in the space, independent creators, it's so important to have them, because if they're working for these studios or even for some of these companies where your access to a game ahead of time is reliant on whether you want to, you know, say something that continues a relationship with the studio, then you don't know. You really will never know.
And there is a kind of big difference, obviously, between like movies and TV shows and video games, and that's the price. Yeah. A cost of entry is wildly different. Video games, a standard edition is $70, and they have, you know, special editions or deluxe editions that go all the way to $130, and sometimes there's $200 or $300 collector's editions, and we're talking about, you know, I believe on Steam alone, and of course there is some overlap, but there was 20,000 games that released in 2025. And sure, not all of those are $70. A large chunk of those are $1 to $5 games because they're indies. But when the mainstream industry is constantly trying to sell you a $70 product, but there's a $70 product releasing basically every single day of the year, they need to do better, and they need to approach games differently. But at a time where the level of quality is so low and the cost of entry is so high, it creates a massive problem, which is why I, you know, try to play so many games and talk about so many games on my channel, because it feels like a scam a lot of the time. Like, if you picked up a game like, I don't know, insert the latest Call of Duty here, which is $70, and it's trash, you know, they do not like to refund you, or there's only like a 2-hour refund window.
I've seen like more than a few times people have come at you online and basically said like all you say is negative stuff, and you kind of have to like defend your own honor in a way to be like, no, I review dozens of games, and I give ratings or I give thoughts that run the gamut from everything, but they want to paint you in a certain box because you don't fit in necessarily with the access media type of critique that comes for these games.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of collectivism that is occurring in the video game industry. If you are not a lunatic liberal, you are out. And we see a lot of people that also push that same mentality because they think that you want to destroy video games just because you are not on the, you know, mainstream industry side. And, you know, I play hundreds of games every single year on my channel. In 2025, I live streamed, I think it was 61 games.
Oh my gosh.
And that's never mind the, you know, 5 hours per live stream.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of content that I'm giving a fair shot to. But I played primarily positive games, or games that I rated above a 7 in the year of 2025. Never mind the years before, but honestly, like, I try to play bad games as well, like Reloaded or Concord or Highguard. But, you know, people that say, oh, you just are a outrage merchant, well, you clearly haven't clicked on my live streams, but you can't expect much from these people.
We talked last night a little bit. I don't remember if it was before the stream or if it was during the stream, but we talked about the idea of going into things cautiously optimistic, right? Like, I
always say that.
Yeah, nobody should want to go into, especially if you're paying money for it. Like, nobody should want to go into something with the express desire of disliking it. In fact, I get annoyed when I end up disliking stuff. And I actually think that in the space, when you get labeled that way as like somebody who only goes into something to dislike it, I think it actually has a weird reverse effect on people where they're so ready to prove them wrong that they might actually give more leeway because they don't want to be seen as somebody who only kind of meddles in the negative, but also wants to go into things, with a more positive outlook. I always make the joke, and I fall into the same pattern when you're watching a movie or a show. How oftentimes, because most of the, people think that we blame it on the actors themselves, but really, how oftentimes do you use the phrase like, oh, they did the best with what they had to work with, right? Like you try to find some type of good in it,
right.
And it ends up actually being more of a positive when theoretically you could probably be more negative because you just don't always want to be seen as somebody who's only dealing in negative media.
Yeah, it can happen for sure. I guess it depends on the material that you're sort of like playing or watching or reviewing, because sometimes there's no possible way to give it any wiggle room or any praise.
What are you watching right now that you're really, really enjoying?
Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yep. Tell it
for sure.
So tell everybody what it is, because like you said, there's very little in the way it seems these days of positive reviews for a lot of things. And I just gave a positive review to the show Best Medicine, and people were basically, they didn't even like watch the show. They just looked at the things that they might not like about it. And that's fine, right? And they listed all of those reasons. And it gets to be a little bit wearing for me all the time because I'm not looking to be bummed out by everything that I watch. But what is it about the show that they're getting right?
Everything. So Night of the Seven Kingdoms follows the first out of 3 novellas that George R. R. Martin had made surrounding the primary characters Duncan Egg, and it's about Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire Egg, exploring themes of like chivalry and honor and Westeros, which is the Game of Thrones universe, but about 100 years before the main show sort of kicks off. But the reason why it's so good is just because you have so many people that were a part of it that actually cared about the source material. So the showrunner, Ira Parker, he actually had helped with House of the Dragon season 1, and he was unhappy with what they were doing with season 2. And so he threatened to leave, but then George R. R. Martin basically said, well, I want you on this other show, and he has done a phenomenal job with it. Like, he even came out and apologized because I would say impactful scene in the novella was left out that had an amazing quote about how you're a knight who, doesn't forget his vows. And he apologized. Very rarely do showrunners care about the source material. Do they really have any passion for their work? And, well, rarely do they apologize.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. It's kind of the easiest example that people can think of in the last 10 years, which is when Sonic first came out and they released those test images and they were absolutely nightmare inducing. They were like, look, we'll go back and fix it at great cost to them. And it's done nothing but get them just endless goodwill because they're about to make their 4th in that franchise.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so that is one adaptation that is going well. Let's talk about one that could possibly be maybe not so good if they don't actually end up making good on what they're saying here, which is weapons director Zach Cregger, which I always want to say Cregger's, but it's not Cregger's. Zach Cregger was given carte blanche to reinvent Resident Evil for the big screen. It says, Zach Cregger's Resident Evil movie could be a fresh break from its source material, as the weapons director has been given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted with the IP. According to Constantine film CEO Oliver Bourbon, the company is the primary rights holder and producer of live-action Resident Evil movies. Explained in the movie that so far that is far away from everything that is connected to Resident Evil, as the company is aiming to tap into Cregger's unique style for this project. With Resident Evil, we have had an incredible journey with one of the most successful international IPs of more than $1 billion in box office for many years, and now we are creating something new, not just a new story idea, but to allow a new generation to take the IP into their own hands and for something different. So they're basically saying, as we always know that they say in these things, you can go and create what you want with this. Is it disconcerting for you that they're looking to disregard the source material?
Oh, it is extremely worrying because it I understand when you are making something that is, let's say, 2 hours long, for example, it is hard to fit in all of the complexities that are covered in a video game that is 9 hours or even 10 hours or
Yeah.
20 hours, depending on the length of it. But when you have such a fan favorite series that has been around for decades, you think that they would want to finally do justice by it, because I like some of the Resident Evil movies. I'm not the biggest hater of them, but I'm also not completely in love with them because they are so far from the source material. Right. And that's such a big issue because Resident Evil is amazing and it deserves justice. And maybe this will come out and it will still be faithful to source material. Maybe, you know, there's a saying he can do whatever he wants with it, but he won't, and he'll stick close to the story that was told in the game, but you never really know.
Is the idea that it would need like the specific, because I think people are sick of the idea of just member berries, right? Like it has to be more than just like, look at this visual image that harkens back to the game. It needs to have story beats that actually feel realistic to the game, rather than just putting like the Umbrella logo in there and being like, and calling it a day.
And having like a raccoon bobblehead on a shelf, right?
Funny fact, Mortal Kombat, the original 1995 Mortal Kombat is still probably my favorite video game movie of all time, just because it's from my childhood. It was, the same guy directed the first Resident Evil, and I didn't know that. Paul W.S. Anderson did both of those movies. And we are kind of in, I don't know if it's a golden age for video game adaptations, but I do believe, because one of the questions I get asked very often is like, do you think superheroes are coming back? Are we going to have a renaissance? And I said, I don't, at least not in the next 10 years. Like, trends for movies, I don't know if it's the same for games, but trends in Hollywood tend to be cyclical. You go through generations where for about 10 years westerns will have their run, for 10 years crime thrillers will have their run, usually kind of kicked off by one movie that inspires a bunch of other movies to try and take up the genre. And I believe that superhero movies in general are on their way out as far as being the cultural catalyst that they once were. But we do seem to be entering what could be theoretically the golden era for video game adaptations if they actually found a way to do it right. And right now we've got Mortal Kombat, which came out in 2021, which was fine, but it was kind of marred by COVID. It didn't get the release that it should have gotten theater wide anyways. But you've also got Street Fighter coming out, which a lot of people like. I'm excited about that one.
It's
like,
campy.
Yeah, and all it took was beating up the car, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go. Are they gonna make a Streets of Rage movie next? Because I would absolutely watch a Streets of Rage movie if they did that. But I feel like maybe the benefit would be, and this is probably awful to the ones who love video game lore, but given that you can't trust Hollywood anyways, the best thing you can hope for is, like you said, campy, and give them franchises with a limited amount of lore to them. So Street Fighter itself, I'm sure there's lore there as far as like the characters' backgrounds and all that stuff, but that's not what they're going for with this movie.
Yeah, no, and like you mentioned, I do think that we are going to continue to see a wide variety and a large amount of video game adaptations, but it's because look at how much money video games make. In 2025, it was $198 billion that video games brought in. It's only been increasing. So, they are seeing their industry, this being Hollywood, doing pretty poor movies and TV shows, not making a lot of money. And they're like, wow, we can do these major crossovers. And so everything's getting greenlit. I mean, even the A24 Elden Ring movie, I don't know how that's possibly going to work. But you see,
like, wouldn't that need a bigger studio with a bigger budget?
Yeah,
like you know me, you guys know me. I'm not one to like say that we need to give movies huge budgets. I'm if anything, I'm the one who says like we've been giving movies huge budgets for too long. It's time to cut the budgets on these films if you're looking to make a profit. But if you're making Elden Ring, wouldn't the point be that you just know that when they pitched it, they're like, it's like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. Like that was involved in the pitch. How do you do that on a medium budget or a small budget? You can't.
The only thing I could see is if it turns out to be some like low tier, like medieval show, and it's just some dude swinging a sword in like a decent suit of armor. But then it's like you're losing the complexity of the different creature types and the different bosses. And is it only going to be him like fighting humanoid bosses? It makes absolutely no sense, at least in my opinion. But
I feel like
yeah, I mean,
is
luckily there
A24
are some adaptations that I think are going to be good, like Legend of Zelda. That looks very promising. They got a good cast. I'm excited for that, but I mean,
Look,
I don't
love
trust
the
an
old...
A24 Elden Ring.
Like, is A24, somebody in the chat will know, and I should know about it, but I believe they're the ones making the Death of Robin Hood movie, which I have no interest in seeing whatsoever, because I can't see what the fuck is going on in the movie. It's so damn dark, because it doesn't look like it's been lit by anything, because that's the A24 style for those types of movies. But in general, video game adaptations seem to be what is going to end up being the next big thing, and I think I said last night, I said, it feels like if it's going to be Elden Ring or any series with deep lore, television is the only way that they can really go. Because they're not going to give you a trilogy the way they gave Lord of the Rings a trilogy.
Oh,
like,
no, absolutely not.
You've got Fallout, which I've seen to varying degrees has been very successful. A lot of people that I wouldn't say that I necessarily like trust, but people that I know have tastes similar to mine say that they really liked the first season and the second season was also good. Last of Us, a lot of people dislike, but at least went pretty heavy into the background of the game and stretched it out over however many episodes, and then of course effed it up at the end of season 1 and had to go into season 2 with things the way that they were. But you've got more room to work with on a television show than a movie. But like I was saying to you yesterday, you're always going to have to suffer because the genres that you love are the ones that are the most ripe to be abused by the system, being video games, because they feel like they can just change whatever they want because, you know, they're like, well, it's just a bunch of cutscenes anyway, so they just change it however they want. And then high fantasy is the one that seems to be the one that they want to change the most for the sake of modernity.
Right, because they view it as, oh, if we can have dragons, why can't we have black elves and like people like dwarves in wheelchairs, for example? They think that it gives them free reign, even though they're free to go and create whatever they want. I say this all the time with video games. I'm never going to say a game shouldn't exist, but I am going to point and laugh at its existence. And you're free to try to make a Lord of the Rings competitor or Game of Thrones competitor that's modern, that doesn't have these heavy adult themes, and you know is open to everybody and very inclusive, but you can't because you're not talented enough. So they take things and destroy them, as we have seen with Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Tomb Raider, and you know, all these bad adaptations like Wheel of Time, Rings of Power. Oof.
Are you cautiously optimistic about Tomb Raider? That's the thoughts that I want to get you on. Like, what do you think about Tomb Raider?
I have basically no faith in it because I think that Sophie Turner is a very beautiful woman and she's a very tall woman. I just don't see her as Lara Croft. But when somebody like Phoebe Waller-Bridge is writing it and directing it and producing it, and then you have a Marvel's writer on it, there's no possible way that that is going to work because we are talking about feminists and they are going to add in very like low quality feminist humor. And we know that Lara Croft, yes, is a very strong and sexy woman in her own right. I don't think there's anybody in Hollywood that could compete with Angelina Jolie, that's for sure. But they're going to make her too much of a girl boss, and that's the problem.
I think it's not even the girl boss thing. Like the character itself is hyper competent. So like depending on your definition of that word. But the thing I thought was funniest about it is they seem to turn it into an either or. Like, you can either be really... Because basically the way they were pitching it was that if we make her too attractive, it will somehow detract from the fact that she's so good at her job.
This is what we see happen a lot in video games, where the developers have the mindset of you either are sexy and stupid, or you are masculinized and ugly and you do not lean on femininity, but you are very competent. And it's so infuriating because Lara Croft is a perfect example. Samus is a perfect example, where I mean, even Bayonetta is a perfect example where you can be both and we shouldn't have to pick and choose. But of course they want to do things like rewrite female characters. They want to reinvent certain series. They want to ultimately change what they view as a male-dominated space because they hate men.
It's also if we go back to Resident Evil, it is the height of artistic vanity to believe that you can do better than this franchise, which has now spanned decades. But of course, to reach a certain level of success in Hollywood, it actually does require a little bit of delusion about your own skill set. And I actually mean that kind of as a compliment, right? Like, you have to be so sure of yourself that you could do whatever you want and be crazy enough to think that this is going to work. I talked about this yesterday, and it made no sense, but it was successful. But back in like the late 80s, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I was watching this review on it. Now, I never watched the show, but they did a television show called Friday the 13th, which had nothing to do with Jason whatsoever. He wasn't involved at all. He wasn't allowed to be involved at all. The studio, basically because it was made by Paramount, they're like, we own this IP. We don't want to just leave it on the shelf and just make movies. So they gave it to this guy to make. And at one point, they pitched the idea of putting like an episode about Jason in there. And they just didn't do it because they had found their own niche for the show. But if you ask the average person, and they did focus group testing as well, where they said like, you know, what do you think about this show, this idea? Of course, it made no sense to anybody because they're like, basically the show was about a haunted antique store full of like merchandise from the devil that would cause problems, and it sounds absurd,
right?
But
it was like collecting cursed items.
Yes, exactly. But
it's kind of like The Conjuring and the Warrens, how now you know we see how many items they have. Yeah,
but you do have to have a certain level of delusional confidence to be like, I'm gonna make a Friday the 13th show, it's not going to involve Jason, and then actually get it past one season and turn it into, you know, albeit it's a cult classic, but something that a lot of people ended up enjoying. Now the problem is, most of the writers probably have that level of intellectual and artistic vanity, but not all of them can deliver on that. And that's on a franchise that's a lot, you know, that's got a lot less lore, I'm sure. You know, it's not like we consider Jason Voorhees to be on the level of lore as, say, a Resident Evil, which has now been going on for as long as it has.
And we actually just had seen that happen with Silent Hill, because Silent Hill is another like cult classic, really widely beloved horror video game series. But they did return to Silent Hill just a couple of weeks back. It was horrendous, but it was directed by Christopher Gans, and he actually had done another Silent Hill, I believe it was roughly 20 years ago. And he didn't learn from his mistakes because he's just busy putting his own spin on it. He's disregarding the lore. He's disregarding the established story, disregarding characters, and he's completely rewriting it. Like, how many people get another go in a series when you've already done a bad job and you still do terribly?
Yeah, it's, so there was a rumor going around yesterday. I didn't make it a topic because I don't have any evidence to back this up yet, but they were saying that, and again, this is also one of those things, this could have been leaked by a publicist, where they said that Tom Cruise was looking to recruit Chloe Zhao to do Mission Impossible 9. And I'm like, so is this like the final reckoning? Like, what is it, the reckoning? I don't know. But the point is like, that's failing upward, right? She's done a ton of movies, all, you know, her ones that have been successful, I guess you'd call indie darlings, but she did The Eternals and it did horrible. And nobody was clamoring for more of those characters. Anybody that is, I question their sanity because it was so damn boring, but nobody's looking for more of that. But failing upward is a trend in Hollywood.
Right, exactly.
We got a 20 here from Tacty Platty. Long time no see, my friend. It's been a while. Says, Brett, congrats on 1,000 episodes. Go watch some Star Trek Enterprise or tell Fear Me It's Bree to watch the Pendragon cycle. Vara, have you seen the People's Joker trailer? Yes, she has.
Yes, I have.
Of course she has. We would never make her watch it a second time, though. You know that movie's available on Tubi now?
Really?
Yeah, it ended up on Tubi.
Oh.
I'm never gonna watch it, but I'm sure somebody will.
I think I'm okay.
That's okay.
I'm all set.
All right, guys, we are gonna go to you know what? I'm gonna do cue to the day. I was gonna save this to the end, but we got a crisis party, and I know exactly what's gonna happen because we have more topics to introduce. And what's gonna happen, as it always does, is the second I start doing the monologue to intro the topic is right when it's gonna go off and it's gonna interrupt everything. So let's go ahead and do cue to the day. Everybody loves to brag about their pets, as we all know. Everybody on planet Earth loves to brag about their pets. This is from the Yarn Mom once again, says, PCC, this is Birdie Dirtbike and her unlikely bestie Pipsqueak the guinea pig. They watch every day and love the new changes. Awesome shows this week, guys. Aww. That is amazing. Now I kind of want a guinea pig.
Guinea pigs are cool.
Like I kind of want, like it's like, it's almost gonna, it feels like it would turn into like a social media pet because they look so cool. They look so cute when you take photos of them.
Yeah,
like,
your social media feed's just gonna be pictures of the animal.
I bet you there is no such thing as an ugly photo of a guinea pig. That doesn't feel like that's a real thing. Probably
not.
All right, let's do one more here. And again, like I said, we're end up crisis party, and then we're gonna have to worry about it. Also, you're not gonna be able to hear this, but I added a sound effect here, guys. So now, whenever something awesome happens, I can give applause to everything. See, it's like having an audience in studio. That's amazing. We need that. All right, one more here. This one's from Skylar. Is it Daubert? Throwback. Found this of my culture war kittens. Duchess top and her sister Marie on the bottom. All of the kittens of the same litter have black tails. Aww. Look at that. That's very unique.
Yeah.
I wonder how often that happens. That would be like if Toast and Mocha, our cats Toast and Mocha, had a baby, which they can't because they're both girls. But, you know, one of the cats is white and one of the cats is black. So
yeah,
there you have it. All right. You know what? The hell with it. We're just going to go for it. If I have to edit around this, we will. Let's talk about Margot Robbie, ladies and gentlemen. So on its face, I would say that I am a fan of Margot Robbie. I did enjoy her in the Suicide Squad. Whatever you feel of that movie, I felt like she really, really enjoyed playing the character of Harley Quinn, and a lot of people have their own opinions on that version of the character. I think a lot of the issues people have with it probably stem back to the way that they cut out so many of the Joker scenes when they made Suicide Squad, which really, you know, it diluted his and her characters, which made it worse for everybody. But in general, I think Margot Robbie is great. She, you know, Barbie being the success that it was, she became more of a cultural icon than ever before. And she goes back, you know, well over a decade, you know, Wolf of Wall Street, very successful. But what she's saying is that she makes movie for the people buying tickets. She says, I never think, what are the critics going to think of this? And this is what she said. I consider audience always. I've never been on set and thought, what are the critics going to think of this? She says, I'm like, what's an audience going to feel right now? What's their emotional response going to be? I believe you should make movies for the people who are going to buy tickets to see those movies. It's as simple as that. She then goes on to talk about how much she loves Emerald Fennel, which is still the weirdest name in history. Emerald.
That's so strange.
I always think it's Emerald. Like, you know, like kick it up a notch, bam. The chef guy. There it is. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Okay. Rest in peace to whoever's upstairs. I always feel bad because whoever's
it
upstairs.
is nice to finally be on PCC and not have it blaring in my eardrums. You know, I've been in the studio 4 times during that, so like it is actually nice to not have to deal with that.
Not have to deal with it. I don't blame you. It's yeah. I mean, the worst is if you have it and the headphones aren't on. That is when it's bad.
That's rough.
The headphones dampen it, though. So anyways, Margot Robbie, right now, Wuthering Heights. Now, we can get into Wuthering Heights because we had a whole discussion last night about adaptation, all of that stuff. Wuthering Heights underperformed domestically. It didn't make the money that they thought the movie was going to make. It was in the high 30s. They thought it was going to make $48 to $50 million. It did not. It's over $80 million. That is largely due to decent overseas sales tickets. But the movie was panned by critics and audiences alike. Online, on Rotten Tomatoes, 59% from critics, 78% from the audience, which of course, as you and I know, the only score that really matters is the audience. So I was just curious. I was like, I'm going to try and take her for her word. Does she really make movies with the audience in mind? So I went back through all her movies all the way back to 2022 because we actually reviewed the movie Amsterdam on this channel. I vaguely remember feeling like neutral to positive about it. It was probably too long, as I think all movies are. These are all her releases in the last few years. A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. 37% from critics, 58% from audiences. So It didn't resonate with the audiences. Here's her best one. Barbie, 88% from critics, 83% from audiences. Asteroid City. See, I don't think she was a lead on that one, but I included it anyways. 76% from critics, 62% from audiences. Babylon, 57% from critics, 52% from audiences. Amsterdam, 31% from critics, 61% from audiences. She's not exactly killing it in the audience score category. So I just wonder sometimes, is this something they say when the critics don't like their movies? They're like, you know what? I don't make the movies for you guys anyways.
Yeah, I think that she tends to lean towards more, as I like to call them, artsy fartsy movies, very pretentious movies like Babylon, for example. Yeah. It's very specific. And Margot Robbie's obviously been in some wildly successful movies like Wolf of Wall Street, correct, Suicide Squad, but
also don't let her comment about Suicide. Whatever you think of the movie itself, it made like $800 million.
Yeah.
So it was still absolutely successful against the budget. Maybe not because of reshoots and stuff like that, but it made a decent amount of money, especially when you think about what $700 or $800 million means in 2016 money, as opposed to 2025 money. That's a whole different ballgame. But continue.
Oh yeah, but I don't necessarily think that she is trying to make movies specifically for audiences. I think that it's just basically deflection and her saying, oh, I don't make them for the critics anyway. Yeah, because the critics don't like your movies, but audiences don't generally either.
That's actually the worst place to be. So, okay, it can theoretically make sense. If you've made your money in Hollywood, and she's a producer on almost everything she makes now. She's very deeply embedded in the production process of movies, not just in the acting part of it. So if she's working on a project, she's not just, making money off of it. Theoretically, she's investing money as well as a producer, or at the very least, it's going to affect what she makes in the back end of the deal, if it makes money or not. But right, that would make sense if you've made your money already and all you really care about is hearing the critics fillet your work. She's not succeeding there either, because all of these ratings, the highest one is the 80. There's one in the 70s that she wasn't even like a star on. The rest of them are 50s, 30s, 50s, 30s. Like, she's not getting the critics either. Now, that would be fine if it was the type of movie where it's like the critics hated it, but the audiences thought it was great and all came out to see it. I actually contend that these days, audiences are more forgiving of movies than critics are a lot of times, because you're not going to take the time and the money to go see a movie unless you're pretty darn sure you're going to like it anyways. And then there's probably some type of like Stockholm syndrome where you're like, it's like sunken cost fallacy. It's like, you know what? It wasn't that bad because it cost me $30 for tickets for me and my wife or whatever. And then another $50 for food or $40 for food. Maybe you just like trick yourself into being like, you know what? It was fine.
Yeah, and I think for me, the largest difference I've ever seen with movies or with the Five Nights at Freddy's films, the critic scores were I believe it was a 9% for the first one and a 16% for the second one. They're like 85 and 90, the audience score. So that is a massive difference. And with the sequel, the video game journalists were complaining that it was too faithful to source material, that it had too many callbacks and too many references, and it was hard to follow because there was so much lore. Oh yeah, guys, because that's such a big problem, a faithful adaptation.
That's actually one of the most annoying things too, because to me, as somebody like, there's a lot of franchises that I like that have made television shows or movies that I like where I can tell what I'm watching there has something to do with a callback. And it doesn't bother me because I'm just going to operate under the premise that if anything, even if it doesn't make sense to me, it exhibits care, from the director and the creators. That's such a big
part of making anything.
Yeah. Do you think that, so they're calling Wuthering Heights a success. I don't know if I would go that far yet. It depends on the legs it has at the box office. It is theoretically possible that if the drop-offs from week 1 to week 2 are lower and it doesn't fall off a cliff like so many movies do. And that is possible for this movie. This isn't a big blockbuster film, and typically it's the blockbusters that are front loaded. They make a lot of their money on the opening weekend. Once the spectacle is gone, nobody comes for week 2. But if it holds decent returns over the next couple of weeks, you could call it successful, I guess. But now they're saying that this is going to be the next in the line of basically book talk movies, which is movies made for women, like Wuthering Heights in this case, which just feels like a weird quasi-porn adaptation. But you've also got Colleen Hoover, who's making, they're making a lot of Colleen Hoover stuff that is marketed to women. And Amanda Seyfried was kind of championing this film today, basically in the process of saying, like, between this and the success of The Housemaid, that we're going to see a renaissance of movies made for women. Do you believe that that would be something that is actually going to be a recipe for success in these industries?
I think it's tough. I generally would say no, but I do also see movies that clearly are female focused, like Barbie or even like Wuthering Heights, doing either very good or at least pretty good so far. So I think that I think anything can work as long as you have a strong enough target audience and you know who that audience is. But I think that there are a lot of women out there who do not like sort of bastardized adaptations of like classic literature, for example.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about, like you said, the core theme of Wuthering Heights was completely obliterated by the movie.
Yeah, it was pining and yearning, and like you want this person that you can't have, and then it's like, oh, they're screwing in the carriage, yeah, because that totally represents what the core themes of Wuthering Heights were.
I would like to say that movies should actually, like, one of the problems about modern Hollywood movie making, because it has to be done by committee, because it has, they're dropping millions upon millions of dollars into these films. The general idea, at least from everything that I've seen, is that when it comes to larger budgets, they do not want something with a narrow focus, meaning that they're looking for what are called 4-quadrant films, men and women, young and old. They don't just want movies that, work for a specific demographic, but Wuthering Heights is very much for women. It Ends With Us was very much for women. The Housemaid, that you could say that because of Sydney Sweeney and the appeal that she has.
But it was quite a feminist film.
Exactly.
They did make changes, like the cop at the end was a woman in the movie to hammer home the point, even though it was a man in the book.
Yeah. But the point is like, I actually believe that the narrower the focus is for your movie, the better off you are, because if you can get your target demographic to come out, I don't believe that people are so linear, meaning that, if a movie is made for a woman, fine, but she can convince her husband to go see it, or a boyfriend to go see it. And there are men that will watch movies like this regardless of the fact that it's clearly marketed for women. The closer you adhere to your target demographic, it feels like you're going to be over the target, and you're going to actually focus on making the movie the way it's supposed to, because a lot of the changes that come down the pipeline for movies is because they have to start moving the focus outward to be on people other than the people it was meant for. Like you said, one of those changes for that movie, for The Housemaid, was that they changed they didn't need to do that. They didn't need to do that.
And we see this as a big problem in the video game industry, because there are so many, plain and simply, activists that are a part of the video game industry now who want video games to appeal to everyone. People of color need to feel represented. Women need to feel represented. And they're trying to sell to everyone, which really means they're selling to no one, because you've pushed away your core male audience that video games have always been marketed to. And then you're pushing away people like myself who have always loved video games, even if they were marketed specifically to men or they clearly wanted to target a male audience, because you've lost what made the game special in the first place. So we see so many reboots and remakes and just terrible sequels, and nobody likes them.
Is there anything coming out video game wise that's a sequel that actually does get you interested?
The only follow-up that's coming out anytime soon is Resident Evil 9, which comes out next week, because obviously Resident Evil's amazing, but besides that, I mean, not really.
Nothing?
No.
I would love to see like you said with Five Nights at Freddy's, right? Like I didn't see the second one. I liked the first one. I think tonally it was a little flat for me, but I still had a good time at the theaters. For that. Matthew Lillard will sell me on just about anything most of the time anyways. But I would like to see narrower focus on these movies. Now, you can't do that with the tent poles. Like, if you're going to drop $200 million on something, you're never going to get the studio to be like, we have to make... Like, the Lord of the Rings days are gone. Like, they're going to meddle in the production the way, far more than they did when Peter Jackson was making Lord of the Rings movies, because the investment now is tied to these private corporations for these public corporations that have shareholders and stuff like that. And you look at what's going on with Paramount, who said that they were going to make a Last Ronin movie based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they quashed it because they're like, we're going to make more cartoons. We're going to make more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I thought it sounded very cool.
I know. Like that was the word. I was like, I think that's something that would have exclusively.
I would have been on board for that.
That would have been marketed to men 110%, because selling the idea of like, look, all of the turtles but one of them are dead. Their master is dead. Like the city is in chaos. There's only one left, and he has to avenge the death of his brothers. That's going to appeal to men. It is. But you're telling me
it's a story of brotherhood.
Yeah. You're telling me that there isn't an audience of women that would also go see that movie? I don't believe that.
I'd pre-order a ticket.
Yeah.
Damn.
Are there any movies this year that you are looking forward to?
I don't even know what's coming out this year.
I know
it's just the worst part.
Okay, what's the next game that you're looking forward? The next 2 games that you're looking forward to besides Resident Evil?
Crimson Desert is one. There is a new Pokemon game that's coming out that does look kind of cool, like Pokemon Pokopia, I think that it's called, which also is neat. It's kind of like Animal Crossing, but with Pokemon. But the Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight game also seems really sick. Okay. Oh, and Hail Mary's coming out this year. I'm actually very excited for that movie.
Oh, Project Hail Mary.
Yes, Project Hail Mary. Book was great. Ryan Gosling's a great actor.
I loved him in Fall
I'd say
Guy.
that's probably my most anticipated movie right now.
I think I saw that the runtime is like 240 almost, and I was like, okay, like you're pushing it on me.
They are.
You're pushing it on me, but Ryan Gosling, like he seems to be like the most bulletproof of the actors in Hollywood. Like I still believe that that movie will probably do better. Like his Star Wars movie will probably do better than The Mandalorian and Grogu when it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about actors in politics. It's it becomes the most repetitive of issues. I know, guys. They love to hear themselves talk. Whatever. My supposition, however, is that it has less to do with the actors and more to do with the fact that the journalists who give these actors these questions absolutely deep down hate their guts. And even when they do give an answer that the journalists want, oftentimes it feels like they can't actually make up their mind, or they walk it back, and it's because they're talking heads. Ethan Hawke would be one of those talking heads. Ethan Hawke on If Stars should speak about politics. This is the quote. The last place you probably want to look is a bunch of jet-lagged, drunk artists. Well, he's right about that.
I would agree with that. I would.
So it says, Ethan Hawke weighed in on the current political debate at this year's Berlin Film Festival. So this whole film festival, guys, there was one journalist there. He was a political journalist, not an arts journalist. And his whole point was to basically go there and be like, so are you like against fascism? Are they supposed to be like, actually, I'm kind of for it? Like,
right.
Like, I thought about it, and, we've had enough liberalism for a while. I think we should do fascism for a while. That, like, nobody's going to say that. You're basically just putting them through a weird one-man struggle session because you know that there's only one right answer to the question. It says, during the press conference for the new historical drama, The Wait, the Oscar-nominated actor was asked about his positions on the responsibility of big names to speak out on topics like fascism. He took a moment to contemplate the question before saying, all right, the last place you probably want to look for your advice in spiritual counsel is a bunch of jet-lagged, drunk artists talking about their films. So this is the framing of it, right? It's kind of like that, but he's talking about something wider, which means that I'm right on 2 counts here. The journalist hates him because he asked him the question in general, which audiences know, which they know the audiences are going to find divisive. And then another journalist hates him because the way it was phrased in the article headline isn't even fair or accurate to what he was saying, which is because he was tying it all back to his movie. And then he later says, like, but if that, like, stops fascism, that's great. Right?
There's so many of these journalists that will show up to these like red carpet events or these film festivals and then ask such questionable questions.
Yes.
Where like Bella Ramsey, for example, what do you think about playing them? I guess.
Them.
Yeah, would be it. And then of course, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, they're asked again by the same person. It's like, come on, clearly, like, you're putting these people on the spot to try to get a headline, but then you don't even accurately represent it in the headline, which
that's the lie. That's the big lie. He says, after laughter and applause from the room, Hawke added, I believe in the power of cinema to affect. You know how every night we all dream and those dreams kind of heal us and get us ready for the next day. I feel like collectively, the whole festival, all of you, all of us here are responsible for creating an international dream life. What is it? What are our dreams? I hate it when they say stuff like that. What are our dreams? What are we talking about? What are we thinking about? He said one of the reasons he loves The Wait is because at its core, it's about a group of people who don't think they have anything in common, who band together to fight institutional greed and malevolence, and that's worth fighting for. However, he concluded his answer with a more direct answer to the reporter's question. Anything that fights fascism, I'm all for it. So
yeah.
They could have very easily made the headline that quote right there.
Yeah,
because when I was talking to Vara the other day, she sent this article about Ethan Hawke, and I said, bro, it was like 2 days ago that he said that he said something else, that he basically said that. I was like, that can't be accurate, right? And it took all of 10 seconds to find. This is from January 27th. Ethan Hawke says there's a fear in America to speak your mind as he speaks his mind to the media. That's their mean version of it, where it's like, I'm scared to speak out about politics, as he says it to like a room full of people who all clap like seals for him. This is his quote. I never felt scared about what I was going to say until the last couple of years, he told the paper's reporter, where I feel like, oh, you have to be careful, or what? I don't know, but there's a kind of fear in the air that I've never felt before, and it's not America. To get to be an artist in a free country, I've had enough of an education to know what a privilege that is, and I don't feel that way anymore, and that's something that has to change. So somehow, in a room full of people and cameras, as he, promotes movies or goes to these rubber chicken dinners that cost thousands of dollars to attend, he gets to say how scared he is to speak out about his politics while speaking out about politics. Now that is a more fair representation of his actual thoughts on politics. Yet somehow, this Variety journalist, who theoretically is supposed to like this guy, has this thing that basically says that, you don't want to come to me about politics, and it's not even accurate. It's not even in the spirit of what he was saying.
I also think that there is a bit of hatred from these journalists that they lose their jobs so easily now, and they are getting actively replaced. And sure, you could sit here and argue, well, in 5 years, maybe the AI will replace the actors. I don't think that's going to happen or happen that quick. But regardless, they view it as, well, this actor's getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to do 5 minutes of work, and that's about it. And so there is this hatred that they are building for these actors. And, it also happens in the video game industry where the journalists hate the independent developers, like, not like Highguard, though, because they're not actually independent.
Yes, we thought they were, but they're not.
Yeah, they hate the independent creators and also developers who they think are replacing them, because they are.
So I was just curious about like the Berlin Film Festival. You'll get a kick out of this. So this is the guy who says that if you're not ready to speak up about fascism, then you shouldn't be coming. Okay, it's a film festival, and if you're not ready to bash the fash, then I guess you shouldn't come to this film festival. Right. This is what it says.
That makes sense.
It says, while the sidelining of politics in Berlin is calling a stir, if an artist is afraid to speak up about fascism, they shouldn't be coming. A clear sign that the world has gone topsy-turvy is when the Grammys are more political than is it the Berlinale? Somebody can tell me if I'm wrong about that. I'm not up on pretentious art film festivals. Somebody can let me know if I'm wrong about that. Whatever. The point is, it gets very political. It says, but while anti-ICE pins and punchy statements were the surprising headline act in LA earlier this month, over in Berlin, historically an event where politics have played center stage on and off screen, the overriding theme of the 2026 festival so far is one of political silence, or at least that's how the narrative has been framed. Festival attendees Wim Wenders, Michelle Yeoh, and Neil Patrick Harris have all come under fire over their apparent refusal to make political statements when prompted in press conferences. I did see that basically they asked Neil Patrick Harris like what his thoughts were. He's like, I like stuff that's apolitical, and they're like, you're a bad. Basically, they're like, you're like a bad person for liking stuff that's apolitical. Jury head Wenders comments on the opening day in which he asserted that we have to stay out of politics when asked about the German government's support for Israel impacting the festival's stance on Gaza, lit the match. It soon led to author, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce this guy's name. Is it Arundhati Roy or Wa? Pulling out of the festival in anger. The bombardment of political questions in each and every media meet only snowballed from there on. So people are walking out of this event because people won't say the thing that they want them to say. Yep. That's absolutely
If you are not with them, you are against them. You are their enemy if you do not, fight for the causes that they personally believe in.
Says, but then we talk about Michelle Yeoh, who they asked about ICE when she is from Malaysia and lives in Switzerland, and it doesn't have anything to do with her.
Why would you ever even want her commentary on it? It's not like it relates to her at all whatsoever, what's going on in America.
It would be like you asking me my opinion on video games. It honestly would. It would be like, so Brett, like, what do you think about localization? I'd be like, sounds bad. Like, doesn't seem like a good idea. But in a way, so I also kind of, and this is going to be kind of, I'm sure some people will be bummed about this. I actually feel bad for a lot of these actors, and I'll tell you why. Now, it is true that many of them are very, very self-absorbed, and they love to talk about this stuff, and you can have dubious understandings of the things that they're discussing, right? But they love the sound of their own voice. Fine, whatever. Everybody in this space has to kind of be comfortable with the fact that you're going to be speaking out. We have to do that every day. I'm sure there's somebody who thinks I'm an idiot and doesn't like the things that I have to say. I'm sure one of those people is actually in the chat right now. But for these actors, they're not allowed to not have social media presence. They have to have social media presence if they want to make movies and television shows. When they go to these press conferences, it doesn't seem like they're being given the option to just opt out of any of this stuff. They have to go do it, despite it seems increasingly true year in and year out that press tours are less and less effective than they've ever been. Like, when was the last time you watched some actor sit across from some stupid interviewer and been like, you know what? I'm going to go see that guy's movie. Has that ever happened to anybody in the year of our Lord 2026? But I do believe that a lot of times they don't know the art of the dodge. They don't know how to get around the question, so they just don't. And then when they do, a la this event, whether it's these guys or it's Kevin James, who's like, you know what? I'm just focusing on the stuff that I like to do, right? Like, I can make the world a better place by making movies that make people laugh. They'll call him a fascist for that anyways.
They will, and that's the unfortunate thing. Like, obviously, I don't really feel bad for these actors because, again, they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars, and then a lot of the times they do use their platform for social justice and talking about the causes they feel passionately about, but it must be a hard, like, dodge and weave game.
Yeah.
See, like, for me, obviously, I'm my platform. I'm my boss, so I don't really care if I say something that upsets people. But yeah, I mean, these actors, they have in some cases, a much tougher time with it.
So I was curious about who it was that was asking all these questions, and it actually gets into it in the article. Looks like the guy's name is it Tylo Jung, the German political journalist who has been asking many of the politically pronged questions, given the, quote, rise of fascism across much of the West. Artists with a bigger reach should be using their platforms to speak out. This is his quote. Fascism is the enemy of artistic freedom, pointing to the attacks against Bad Bunny following his Super Bowl performance. So artists, especially the Hollywood elite, have a special role in at least raising their voices. They need to step up, and the time to do that is now. We need to learn from history. One artist who did speak up to an extent was Rupert Grint. Ron Weasley himself. That's where I go to when I'm looking
the guy who's been in like 3 movies over the past 15 years,
and he's kind of famous now for like he became a meme where like he finished Harry Potter and he bought an ice cream truck. That's all like people know about him is he supposedly bought an
I didn't even know that. So
yeah. One artist who did speak up to an extent was Rupert Grint. Asked if he would comment on the rise of the far right in the UK in the press conference for the Finnish horror movie Nightborn. His answer was, and I quote, "Obviously I'm against it." Like what was the answer you were expecting? Was he going to give you some type of political
They wanted
thesis?
a long speech, right?
He's
they
like,
wanted like a empowering speech that they could edit sad music behind, like throw up some images on the screen and like make it a political billboard, basically.
And the sad thing is he could say that and they're like, well, how can you say that when you won't say even more against J.K. Rowling, who's clearly a far-right Nazi because of her thoughts on trans issues, despite the fact that she's a feminist in literally every other regard. Right. She is a feminist. It says so they gave him like minor props for his one comment, and they said, but that answer was better than Neil Patrick Harris. Nobody is this is the journalist now. He says, nobody is expecting a TED Talk, but at least expect one question and have an answer. But if an artist is afraid to speak up when it comes to fascism, then they shouldn't be coming. You shouldn't come to this film festival if you don't have an opinion on politics.
I think what's so funny about that statement is most of these actors probably don't want to go. They're being told by their publicists or the studio that they're working for, like, hey, we need to get your face in the news, so you have to go. So what happens then? Are we going to see actors' contracts be altered to the point where it's like, if a film festival wants me to speak on politics, I don't have to, or I don't have to go? Like, there's got to be something, I think, but
they should make a movie.
Know.
They should make a movie of like an actor who gets himself into a scandal to get out of going. Every time he makes a movie, he then does something to like he Me Too's himself like right before the press tour. Like Armie Hammer. Okay, so like when all the stuff came out about Armie Hammer being a cannibal, suddenly they pulled all his movies, and one of them that got delayed was Death on the Nile. Where I'm sure all of you are waiting on pins and needles and are going to go watch that movie that came out years ago tonight. So I'm going to give you a chance to skip ahead because I'm going to spoil the movie for you, at least from what I remember. So they released the trailers, and he's nowhere to be seen. He's literally like they do like the credits where they list all the actors in the movie. He's literally on page 3 of the listed actors. Again, spoiler alert, he was the villain. He was one of the main characters, and they just buried him there. What if all the actors were just like, oh my gosh, it's award season. I've got to go to that stupid Berlin. I don't want to go to Berlin. That's so far away. Like, and then he's like, says to his publicist, like, could you like drum up some like scandal, like maybe not a Me Too scandal because that can last, but maybe I was like being belligerent on set. How about we do that?
It's kind of like what Nick Cage does. He'll be part of a movie, and then he'll just, for like interviews or on the red carpet, he will actually act like his character. And I feel like that is the way that people need to go, is like inhabiting this character that they're playing, then just acting like the character. So then they could also say very controversial shit and then just pull the, well, I was in character card, and then the controversy would just die.
I would love that. I would love for you. Because Mary kind of makes the same point. She's like, all of the award shows are now like that awful office Christmas party that you don't want to go to, but you feel some type of obligation for. Otherwise, your boss isn't going to think you're committed to the company. So it's like all of the actors are being dragged there against their will, and they have to go and answer these inane questions. You end up with that the gay reporter from Variety who's going to ask you if it's the gayest Marvel movie or the gayest Marvel show ever. We talked about that last night, Aubrey Plaza and stuff like that. By the way, I'm like one of the 8 people that liked Agatha all along. Don't come at me. Don't.
Yeah,
at
you're
me.
alone there.
I'm alone.
I'm not defending you on that one, Brett.
That's fine. The point being, though, they go to these red carpets and they have to know. They have to know
Right.
that these journalists have their own. Like, this guy isn't even feigning like some type of, lack of agenda here. He's basically saying that it's not even if you don't have an opinion on politics. If you don't have my opinion on politics, you're a bad guy and you shouldn't get to come to this Berlin Film Festival.
I think what's going to happen is like these actors' publicists are going to have to look at a list of the reporters that are on the red carpet or at the event and say, you specifically cannot interact with X, Y, or Z, whoever it may be. Let's say the Variety one. You can't interact with that guy, completely ignore him. And then maybe Variety will send somebody different next time who isn't going to pull the same BS that he does. But unfortunately, the problem is that, again, a lot of people in Hollywood are very like-minded. And if you are not, going to make a statement, they're just going to find another way to drag you through the mud.
I also think there's something to be said that they still do believe in the idea that all publicity is good publicity. So I don't even think they necessarily, it's not even to say that like they everyone's like, don't give money to people who hate you. I don't even think of them as a being capable of rational feelings. I think that they're basically Borgs. I think that all publicity is good publicity. They will appreciate you for hating them every bit as much as they would appreciate you for loving them, because they have no actual emotional connection to anything other than clicks, likes, and the promotion they need for their movies to actually do well. And of course, by their own metrics, right? One of those metrics that they use now is social media engagement, even if it doesn't actually drive any actual revenue for anything like that. The video game industry feels different. It feels like a lot of them are extreme. Like okay, Hollywood has the Mark Ruffalos, okay? It's got the Mark Ruffalos. It's got the ones that, the Javier Bardems, who's extremely politically active. He's talking about Gaza all the time. But I would be willing to bet that a large percentage of them don't care what you think as long as you're talking about them. Video games seems different. It seems very highly, skewed to one way when it comes to the devs.
It's so complicated with video games because you have a lot of companies that very clearly don't want a lot of bad press, because a lot of them do view bad press as bad press. But then you have the individual developers, writers, producers, whoever's working on a project that will say, well, I myself am going to voice my own opinion on social media, which of course that in turns brings a lot of negative attention to the video games. Yeah. Now, with journalists and some of these developers, they will say things like, oh, this isn't made for you, or if you don't like it, don't buy it. But then when in turn you say, I don't want to support it then because the company or the developers are telling me not to buy, then they go, well, you're just a racist, a sexist, a bigot. They throw some kind of insult at you, and then maybe next time they'll change their mindset. But a lot of these companies just straight up do not care what their customers say in a lot of cases.
But it seems like there has become an onslaught of actors who are at least starting to walk it back and at least try to take neutral stances, which, that causes people on the right to do what I always make fun of them for, where they're like, I was like that guy. Like conservatives are so desperate for like one person to be a normal person that all they have to say is like, I don't want to talk about it. They're like, I was like that, Neil Patrick Harris.
And with video games, the major problem is there might be thousands of people working on a single video game, and all of them have personal social media feeds that do reflect. Like, how often do you hear about a studio lighting guy saying some political spiel on his Blue Sky account, and then it's used against the movie? Virtually never. It's just the main stars. But in video games, it could be anybody on a development team that reflects poorly on it.
Oh my gosh, that is true. Like, we need to find out what the gaffer thinks about Gaza. Like, is there
the
a
guy who
called...
brings the pencils to the script writing sections? What is his political view. What does he think of Gaza? You know, like,
is there a Gaffers for Gaza group that I can join as part of a Hollywood union to do that? I also wanted to, like, I also laughed at the hypocrisy of it. Is like they're still talking about Gaza. I don't see any of them. They'll probably start talking about Iran now because of, you know, potential U.S. involvement. If the U.S. does get more involved than they already are, but it's a moot point now. They don't want to bring it up because in the, you know, in the hierarchy of progressivism, Gaza falls slightly above, or it comes in slightly above Iran. So it's all hypocrisy. All right, this one's gonna be weird. Okay, so you guys are gonna have to bear with me on this one. I am conspiracied out, man. My brain has been broken lately. I want to talk about actor Peter Green. Now, this is a story that I covered in December when the actor passed away. If you don't know who Peter Green is, he was in the movie The Mask. He played Dorian in The Mask. He was in Pulp Fiction. He's got a very recognizable, memorable face. He's got these sunken cheeks. Fantastic actor. He died in December. He died on December 12th, right before we went on like break for the holidays, and they were investigating what happened. You know, what were the circumstances of his death. Now it has come out that he has died from an accidental self-inflicted gunshot wound to the armpit. He hit an artery that supplies blood to the arm, the hand, the elbow. It was ruled an accident by the coroner. And this is what I'm talking about when I say this, which is, I read this headline. It all sort of lines up. And then I saw this tweet, which I do believe is still up. This is from Alpha Fox. It says, actor Peter Green has passed away after, quote, and he put in quotes here, accidentally shooting himself. I wonder what he knew. I am so sick of online bait from people like this. And this is what I'm talking about. Every year, about 400 to 500,000 people have self-inflicted gunshot wounds, okay? Several 400 to 500 people die from self-inflicted gunshot wounds every year. About 30 to 40,000 people get injured by those gunshot wounds. So, you know, 500 accidental gunshot deaths, and then 30 to 40,000 injuries. It happens, okay? It happens. We don't like it. It's weird, but it happens. So people are asking, what is it about this that's conspiratorial? Well, I found this clip of him saying something random about the deep state, and then also the fact that he is involved in a documentary for USAID, for the death of USAID. So what I'm going to do first, before we get into all of it, let's watch the clip here, Vara. You'll be able to read it on screen because I don't want to screen share in case we have internet problems here. So somebody posted this down in the comments. You guys can understand what we're talking about here. This is from, I had to go like searching for the account here. It's from someone named Corey Duvall. He's got like 33 followers, but that's where this clip was pulled from. The captions here make me think it was made on Opus. So let's listen to what he has to say.
What does crash the system mean to you?
It says, what does crash the system mean to you?
Take down the existing system and the deep state and what's going on, which I really hope happens little by little. I think the public is waking up to what's really has been going on for decades now, if not for centuries. And I think the proverbial they think that things have come to fruition, but I don't think so. I think people are waking up.
Okay, so that is enough, apparently, to decide that there is a shadowy conspiracy to have this guy off. The other reason it was brought up is he was signed on before he died to do multiple projects at the time of his death. In fact, one called From the American People, the withdrawal of USAID. So I was like, okay, he's against the deep state. Am I supposed to then buy that this is about the problems with USAID? Because I guess that would make sense, right? He's against the deep state. He thinks we have some type of political rot in this country. He's absolutely right about that. So it would make sense that he would also be against USAID because it's been used to fund all sorts of things that have gone against American values, and it's taken money out of the pockets of American citizens through our taxes. Fine. But that's not what this is. This is a documentary about all of the harm it has done to end USAID. This is from someone named Peter Green. It's called From the American People, the Withdrawal of USAID, a documentary from Greg Perry. This is the description. My name is Greg Edward Perry. I'm president of Greg Edwards Management, and I'm directing a documentary that investigates the catastrophic consequences of the current administration's decision to withdraw funding from U.S. aid. I'm reaching out to share our sizzle reel and pitch deck and to respectfully ask if you would consider sharing the reel on your show and doing an interview with me on this critical project. This is from their website, by the way. This is not me. They didn't send this to me. It says, according to UN experts, over 30...
Well, if they sent it to you, you'd be part of the conspiracy.
I know, right?
Brett,
It's
watch
all
out.
me.
Be careful.
It says, well, I don't want to end up with a gunshot to the armpit. So it says, according to the UN experts, that's who I trust for everything.
Exactly.
The UN is where I go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It says,
fantastic.
over 350,000 lives have been lost since the funding halt, more than 200,000 of them children. There are preventable deaths, yet the story has received little nationwide attention. Our film seeks to illuminate the real-world impact of this policy shift and to hold leadership accountable for the humanitarian crisis it has triggered. So already, he's signed on to this project. How is this runs completely contrary to a comment about the deep state, because one of the funding apparatuses of the deep state was U.S. aid. That's where we find, NGOs are a huge means of financing for government bureaucracy to put its ideas out into the world without their fingerprints on it. We know
Right,
this.
exactly. They run contrary to each other. And initially, when you told me a little bit about it and I hadn't looked into it yet, I thought that the conspiracy and sort of the belief people thought that like something happened to him intentionally was because of like he's been in Hollywood for decades.
Yeah.
He knows a lot about the ins and outs of Hollywood, who is in the industry, things about other people. But then you led me down this rabbit hole. I was like, what conclusion are we truly trying to come to
That's
at
my
this
point.
point?
Like, my point is like, look, the Epstein files broke everyone's brain because there's so much evil that has been done,
Yes.
that has been covered up for so
Absolutely.
long that now people want to see it everywhere. This actor, and bless his soul, he's a great actor,
Phenomenal actor.
had a long history of drug problems, had a long history of mental health issues. That isn't even the cause of this. Accidents happen.
They do.
And outside of two just random clips that contradict themselves, people
Right.
look at this and are like, well, this proves it. He was this actor who hasn't been, let's be honest, without trying to be rude, hasn't really been all that relevant in 20 years, was taken out by a shadowy government cabal looking to stop him from speaking about U.S. aid, which he seems to support if he's lending his voice to this project.
Right.
Am
It's
I
not
losing
like
my
he had-
mind?
Right. It's not like he had, let's say, 20 years of a consistent opinion that he just didn't voice publicly that we're now finding out about. And there's hundreds of hours of videos and clips and posts by him and books written by him that he didn't publish. But that's not what is happening here. And it's like we see so often on social media, people who are either in a very rough place mentally or emotionally or physically, and then they are sort of exploited by people looking for a viral clip on social media, and then they mislabel it, they cut it in a specific ways that cut out context.
Yeah.
And so
Like, that's the thing, there's
it's so hard
edits.
to judge this.
There's edits in that clip already, like in the clip. And
That's the problem.
It is interesting. Like, it is interesting that he knew enough to use phrases like the deep state or he's talking about all of these things. But here's the thing. Are you saying that like the head of Evil Government Inc. saw that clip on this guy's channel with 33
They're like,
followers
"We
and was
gotta
like,
out."
we gotta silence him.
Right.
This is not to say that stuff doesn't happen. Absolutely, we have seen a lot of evil uncovered. They didn't even get Prince Andrew on charges against minors. They got Prince Andrew on corruption charges because he
Right.
shared state secrets. And
Morning
stuff
of his
like this.
birthday. Oof,
But
that's gotta
I'm just
hurt.
like, I was my wife this morning was just laughing because I was like, I woke up and I just chose violence because I was looking at all of these posts where it was like, it's all the Epstein stuff, which you get 110%. They're all arguing with that. It's people that love Trump fighting with people that love Thomas Massey, and then I see them talking about Iran, then they're talking about Epstein, and then I saw a post from Alex Clark, which was like, it was like Trump approves the use of glyphosate, and she's like, have you ever seen somebody lose the midterm so quickly? I'm like,
Yeah, it's just another day in hell.
Is that the argument here, that Trump using pesticide is what's going to cost him the midterms? Because I'm sure there's plenty of things people have to complain about that are going to cost him the midterms, and glyphosate probably isn't the driving force. He's not, like, glyphosate is a Maha issue, which is a female voter issue, which did help him in the election. But in general, he doesn't poll as well with women as he does with men anyways.
Oh, exactly.
And we're going into midterms where he's not even on the ballot. His constituents, or the people that support him are. I'm just so tired, man. I'm so tired of these types of clips and this type of thing, which is clearly engagement bait. Your brain has been addled to think that awful things don't just happen. Because one person said, and perhaps they were joking, they're like, 2 bullets to the back of the head, right? And I'm like, no, that's not what happened. But do you know many assassins who shoot somebody in the armpit in hopes of hitting an artery? Did they just wait for him to bleed out there?
Yeah, no. That's not what happened. There's
a 20 here from Alejandro Reyes. Thank you for the super chat. Says, the idea of the deep state has been a well-known idea for decades. British comedy series in the 80s, Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, are based on the concept. How it was retconned into a conspiracy theory amazes me.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I find interesting about it, maybe I'm just... I have very, very low expectations of all politicians, and I distrust all politicians. When Trump ran for office, I didn't think we were going to get arrests. I didn't think we were going to get a swamp that was drained. I didn't think we were going to see some life-altering overhaul of the rot that is disgusting U.S. government. I thought maybe we'd get some lower taxes, and we'd maybe get some deportations and finishing the border wall. I thought gas prices might come down because of market confidence. That's about the only thing that I actually expected from all of it. And I wonder how much of it is like people just feel like they feel so black-pilled because they're online every day. And when their big issue, like I said, I listed 3 separate issues, and every single one of them, it's the end of the world because that one issue that they care the most about isn't being delivered on. And I don't
and
believe,
that's what social media does, is it makes it so easy to voice these sort of catastrophic occurrences that people feel are going on in their day-to-day lives. And some issues obviously are very important and massive, and maybe they don't even get enough coverage, but social media has definitely changed our perception. That's for sure.
Look, maybe I'm the bad guy here. I just, like, I'm all conspiracied out on all of it. Like, the way that I would always phrase it is like, look, even if all of these things are true, you've surrendered your free will if you let this stuff bother you. And I understand why it matters, right? Especially when it comes to the Epstein stuff. The abuse or the harm of children is the most horrific thing that any human being could possibly comprehend.
Absolutely.
And it hits at the heart of who we are as human beings. For women as protectors, for men as providers, and, you know, men and women together creating life, there's nothing more awful than that. Right. But for so much of what I see online now is you've surrendered your mental health. You've surrendered your ability to live a good life because you're letting the evils of the world overcome you. Now, maybe that's just my interpretation. And I think even on a more cynical side, I think it's possible that a lot of it is more, maybe not with the Epstein stuff, but with, you know, other issues like Iran. You're just talking about whatever is going to get you the most engagement because it helps build your platform or your profile for things like that. I can't speak to what is at the heart of the people that care about these issues. I do know
it's a
that
multitude of different reasons.
I do know that we as individuals have to be able to care about more than just what is being done with whatever political administration is there. And I feel the same way. I felt the same way with the last administration, right? Like, whatever stupidity or evil that Biden put into play as a president, letting in,
there was a lot of it,
letting in 20 million people, helping destroy the U.S. economy. All I can focus on is what I can actually affect change on in my life, which is my wife, you know, my friends, my own health, you know, going out skating, getting exercise, all of those things. I just feel like if we jump to stories like this about this guy, which if you read the article just feels like any other tragic accident, it happens thousands of times every year. Hundreds of people die from instances like this. Is it awful? Yes. Is it sad? Yes. Is this a bit strange? Yes. Does this mean that it was a shadowy government cabal that that killed Peter Green, the actor from Pulp Fiction, because he said one innocuous thing. I don't buy it, and I think
I personally obviously don't buy it either. I just think that it's somebody trying to profit off of the pain of somebody else, which is unfortunate. You know, it's like we're sitting here and we're talking about movies and TV shows, and sure, there are people who are laid off in entertainment and Hollywood and video games. And that's one thing, because they can go and find another job. And so to talk about, you know, these people that are getting fired because they made bad products that people didn't like, and then they don't have a job, is one thing. But to then edit clips in a certain way in order to make a passed away actor look a certain way, or to promote a certain ideology or opinion, or sharing different information in order to be the only person on the internet with the clip, is very different.
So yeah, about 500 annual accidental gunshot deaths every year. A good portion of them are self-inflicted, but about 30 to 40,000 people are injured from self-inflicted gunshot wounds every year. So it lets you know this isn't something that happens a couple of times a year and it's super suspicious. The problem is there are those instances in the past where you've read that story.
We usually don't hear about them happening. They're not generally happening to actors, politicians, superstars, you know, people that you are going to read about on the news.
The other thing that I thought you mentioned like media framing. This is an aspect of, I guess I don't know if I'd call like a Twitter account necessarily media framing, but it's framing for the sake of engagement, right? Did you see the story today that said like Sophie Turner gags after kissing Game of Thrones co-star Kit Harington? What they don't say in that headline is they both gagged, but it's framed that way to make it look like he's gross or something like that, because the media is generally evil and is looking for a story.
Right, they want to victimize a woman and say it's so sad that a woman has to do this and has to deal with this type of co-star, even though neither of them had to sign on to the project, but both of them were like clearly playfully gagging. Like it wasn't that serious, but they played brother and sister on a TV show for a decade. And so it is weird to kiss that other person, but it's like a joke to them.
Yeah, so again, he was going to be involved in a documentary about U.S. aid, so I don't know if I buy any of this. Just my thoughts.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's go to Super Chats. We've got some to get through here, guys. If you've got questions for Vara, you shall get them in right now, especially if you need people need some recommendations for games this year. That could be something that people are looking for.
Always happy to help.
All right, this one here is from Shane H. Wilder. It says, "Happy Thursday, Brett and Vara. Of course, we get Vara, which means video game talk, when I can't play any video games. Lol PCC, always testing my will." Well, you must be at work then.
Probably.
Shane H. Wilder says, "Intercession maxing. Saint Carlo Acutis, pray for us. Saint Carlo Acutis, pray for us. Mary's not here, so I'm not forcing Brett to read Latin." I do appreciate that. I mean, if you were good, you would find a way to send your super chat through like brainwaves, because anything that requires me to read is like.
Well, you could always just copy and paste it into like a translator or the voice to text, and then that. Yeah, you could just have it voice to text on the screen instead of your voice. You could AI your voice, and then you can just move your lips like you're the one that's talking.
I'm so bad at reading out loud. Like it's so bad. Like it's one of those things where I was thinking about it the other day. Like all the channels that I love, right? They're reading, it's not videos like me and you do where you're covering the news. It's mostly people that are making like long form retrospective content, which means it's probably a script that they're reading, but you're not live, so you can edit stuff out, all that. I can't, my goal is to I don't base a good show on whether I make good points. I make a good show if I finish reading an article and it actually made sense, which most of the time it doesn't, and our audience is just very kind to me and understands. We've got another 20 here from Yer. Says, "What are your thoughts on Sony PlayStation closing Blue Point Games?"
It's sad. I mean, it's been several years since they made anything, but they did like the Demon Souls and Shadow of the Colossus remakes, which were really good. But every company's looking to downsize. It's really no shocker.
Was that just announced today? I feel like I read something about it.
It was, yes, this morning. So it's not very shocking that it's happening.
Any other studios that you're thinking might close anytime soon?
Wildlight Entertainment, which just did Highguard, so yeah. Them.
There you go. All right, from Chief Corey Anderson says, I don't like the phrase was a game. Games should never be able to be taken away regardless of how bad it is.
Yeah.
Was that Concord? Was that the one that didn't come out?
Concord came out, but they took down the servers and laid everybody off 12 days after it released. So it did come out.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Shane H. Wilder says, the big issue is that even physical copies require you to download the game. So even if you own the physical copy, you don't really own it.
Yes, unfortunately, it is a very big problem because these companies want to go to all digital because it is cheaper. And ultimately, if they want to ban your account, you can't play your game anymore because most games require you to log in. You need internet to even be able to play these games anymore, download these games. It's trash.
I do see a lot of memes that are like, you should not need the internet to play a one-player game.
You should not. No, but they require it because a lot of the time you have to download parts of the game and like day one patches because those don't come on the disc, and it's just the push to all digital.
What is the reason for, if the idea is that they're going to have to patch the game anyways, why do they do physical copies at all? Is that just because there's a market of people that won't?
There's still a market. I know that the number has definitely crashed. It's right now teetering around like an 80-20. So there's still 20% of people who will go out of their way to purchase physical, but it's unfortunately, there's not even an easy way for us to fight against it because there are even a lot of games now that don't get physical releases.
Yeah. All right. Alejandro Reyes says, what's the honest take on R.R. Martin? As good as he is famous?
I think George R.R. Martin is a fantastic writer when he actually writes. I was not the biggest fan of Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons. I still think that he does do good, but I personally am under the belief that his ghostwriter died 15 years ago, and that's why he hasn't put out another major book, because he had a ghostwriter doing it for him and that person passed away, and now he's like scrambling to figure out the lore and everything and which direction to take the story, and I'm fully committed to that. Speaking of conspiracies,
my conspiracy is that he's waiting that all his books are done and he's waiting till he dies to release them so he doesn't have to hear opinions about them.
I sort of think that's likely, but I also don't.
I mean, that was more of like a joke of mine, where I was like, it'd be funny. It's like, you know,
it wouldn't shock me.
He would have to have like an amazing deal with the publisher, who like no like for-profit company would be willing to let them sit that long in case like their company goes insolvent before they have a chance to make money off them. So I don't buy that necessarily would happen, but it would be funny if it was true. Corey Anderson says, Vara, are you a fan of Brandon Sanderson?
I was a fan of some of his earlier work, but unfortunately Brandon Sanderson has sold out to mainstream publishers and Hollywood in order to get movie deals and more book deals, and he definitely does include a lot of inclusivity and diversity forced into his work, not done naturally. I think diversity is great when it's done naturally, but he just sort of does it in order to get these deals.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of it like if maybe I've just kind of been like, most of the stuff that I like these days, the network television shows that I like, and there are a lot that I don't, they have those characters and it just doesn't bother me anymore, mainly because they're not talking about diversity issues, and as long as they're not talking about diversity issues, in the show Best Medicine, there is a gay couple that owns the local restaurant. As long as they're not like talking about how hard it is to be like a gay couple that owns a restaurant in Maine, I don't care. I find stories about personal grievance of any sort to be annoying. I wouldn't want this. If they make a story about some incel talking about how hard it is, he turns into a school shooter because life is so difficult, being an incel, that would be stupid and ham-fisted too. So it really doesn't matter to me as long as they're, avoiding stories about, the woe is me of what it is to it's like it's my main argument why most of the time if they race swap a character, I will complain less unless they actually make the race part of the swap. Like if they race swap Batman one day and then they're talking about like how hard it is to have dead black parents because they were black or something like that, then I'm like, that's different. You're changing the core elements of the story.
Black parents shot in crime alley.
yeah, like
let's start with that.
Yeah, like and the guy will be white, and they'll make it a white supremacist. Then
Yeah,
yes,
of
then we'll
course.
talk. But otherwise, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I liked some of his early work, like Mistborn, but I mean, for instance, sold out to Apple TV, so we know how that goes.
Yep. By the way, if you have Apple TV, remember you're an art nerd. You're an art nerd if you watch Apple TV. That's okay. You're allowed to be an art nerd. All right. Let's see here. Back up. We are all caught up. There we go. Brian Bledsoe says, if GTA 6 drops soon, I bet it will start at $100 to $500 for premium editions.
I do not agree. I personally believe that they are going to ship it at $70 price tag. I think that it'll be $70 for like the standard digital. I think that they're going to charge $80 for physical copies, and I also think that there will be like more expensive editions like digital deluxe and collectors and stuff like that. But I think that they want as many people to buy GTA 6 as purchase GTA 5, and in order to do that, you can't charge $100 or $130 for a game. But I suppose you never know. Maybe they're just so greedy that they're like, we can charge more for this.
Yeah. Censored 86 says, Brett, I tagged you in an article about Eilish on X. Well, maybe we'll get into it tomorrow. We're gonna have Colonel Kurtz on tomorrow, and we'll. I was already messaging her like, what do you want to talk about tomorrow? She's like, I saw Wuthering Heights. I want to come. I want to talk about it. So we're gonna let her talk about Wuthering Heights tomorrow. It's so funny because it's just like, as a guy, I get the pass. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to see Wuthering Heights, and nobody's gonna hold it against me. Real Skinwalker says, you just don't know how to do this, Vara D. You just don't know how to do this. Yes, you do.
Do this.
What
I
is
don't
this?
know what that's in relation to, but okay.
All right. Chief Corey Anderson says, do you think Elden Ring, like Castlevania game, could be successful? Like an Elden Ring game, like I guess in the vein of Castlevania?
With I took that as Elden Ring, but in the style of Castlevania.
Oh, an Elden Ring like Castlevania game.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I don't know. I mean, we did just recently get the Elden Ring spin-off, which went okay. Night Rain was fine, but I don't think that quite did the numbers they were hoping for, so I don't really know if they should take a risk and turn like Elden Ring into something wildly different.
Yeah, it feels like you'd want to stay in your lane there. Like,
yeah,
could you do...
From Software does specific work,
Yeah.
and they're known for that, and that's why they're so successful.
We've got a $20, a $27.99 CA. Is that Canada? Is that
Yes.
communist Canadian currency? Thank you.
CA, yes.
Says, longtime listener / viewer, first time super chat interrupter. I miss Mary, but this gamer chick is a cool fill-in. Can we have her back on regularly? Well,
This is my 5th time being on Pop Culture Crisis, so maybe time number 6 in the future.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different now. Like, because it's remote, it's possible
It's
that
easier,
it could definitely be done easier. Like, I'm, we're interrupting Vara's workday to have her on
It's
today.
true. I know. It's such an inconvenience.
So what you guys need to do is you need to go and subscribe to her channel if you have not done so already, and watch her content as well. That's what you got to do. That way she's not just over here giving her time to me with nothing in return. All right, let's go back up here. We've got more here. You know, for like the longest time, I didn't even realize you could like go just fan funding on here, like on the YouTube end of things. I always have to pull from
Brett.
Well, we had,
How did you not know that?
we have a spreadsheet because everything is tracked on spreadsheet for us, so we would pull directly from the spreadsheet for that. Plus, there would be a lot of times like the back end would freeze. Like the YouTube page would freeze or like crash, and then we'd lose them. So it would be very, very annoying. All right. Cookie Don says, Cookie Don is one of my favorite cute of the day submitters. Cookie Don's cats are very cute. Says, is Link pulling the Master Sword more iconic than the Sword in the Stone these days? Share your thoughts.
What is it?
Is Link pulling the Master Sword more iconic than the Sword in the Stone these days? Sword in the Stone is King Arthur, right?
Yeah. It's tough because it's like in pop culture, both are relevant. I mean, obviously, like The Legend of Zelda is more relevant.
Oh, all right. Yes. Hold on. I see you guys. It's so loud. So loud. I feel so bad for the people upstairs.
It's less loud for me.
Yes,
I'm
that's-
happy with that.
All right. Continue.
I would say not overall, but obviously.
It malfunctioned. That happens sometimes. We expected that to happen on episode one, or on the 1000 episode, special stream, but it did not happen there. So sorry. Continue.
Anyway, I would probably still say no.
Because
that's what Link is based on. The Master Sword's based on.
So it's based on like Arthurian legend.
Yeah. Like the sword and the stone. So
that show. There's a show that was like an early primer for me to not care about race swaps or that type of thing, which was Merlin. The television show Merlin.
That show was so bad, but it did have some good moments.
It was so much,
did.
but it was fun. That's what I care
was
about.
fun.
It was fun. Like there was a lot of show. Like that's the thing. I don't watch a lot of high fantasy. It's never been for me. But there's something just unbelievably cheesy and charming about that show. And
you know what you'd really like? It was like 2006 to 2009, I think. It was a BBC Robin Hood series.
Love that show.
Yep.
Love that show.
Had a feeling.
Another reason that show works is like they literally there's like straw huts out in the woods. I'm like, they don't do that anymore. They build everything on sound stages. They just went out into the woods and filmed stuff. But then again, I love Mortal Kombat Conquest, which is one of the worst shows of all time, and I will watch that show any day of the week. So, it's not hard to please. All right, we've got more here. Corey Anderson says, Brett, have you looked into the Cotton Eye Joe independent horror movie yet? No, I have not. I should. I remember somebody saying it. I don't remember if there was a trailer for it or not. I don't go to horror movies very often. I think the last one I did was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And
that was good.
That was fun. But we were laughing and everybody else in the theater looked at us like we were weird. But that movie was hilarious. Adam says, you should watch the Pendragon Cycle, Rise of the Merlin. It hooked me on the first episode. It's really good. Yes, I've seen a lot of good opinions from people on that, and I'll tell you why I think that's probably true. Is I feel like most people in the conservative space that aren't commentators are usually looking to dunk on anything made by conservatives, especially anything made by a conservative company, not an independent creator. So if people that aren't necessarily like content creators are saying something nice about a Daily Wire show, then it's probably pretty good. I don't take a lot of creators' words on that. Like we went and saw Lady Ballers. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
And I made the point of like saying when we watch it was like when they're doing the anti-woke humor was when it was at its worst, and when it was actually trying to be emotionally driven with the story between the dad and the daughter was when it was at its best. But it still had those tinges of like, oh, men trying to be women. like that humor just falls flat for me. Like the only person who's really ever been able to nail humor in that space that I like is Ryan Long, and he is rarely, if ever, that on the nose. It's a lot more subtle than that. So if you're seeing random people saying they like Pendragon, then you can probably take that as to mean it's probably pretty good. But it's hard, man. Like getting people to subscribe to a new streaming service just to watch one thing is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
But if it does well, good for them. All right, let me get more here. Corey Anderson says, Brett, did you just assume your cat's gender? Yes, I did earlier in the show. I did assume our cat's gender.
I mean, there's only two genders, so.
And I'm assuming, because, Bucket, which is our like one of the neighborhood cats, he always comes up to us and we give him food. He goes all around the whole neighborhood. He's actually a legend where we live, Bucket the cat. He will sometimes be in our doorway and looking up the stairs, and our cat Toast will be looking down, and Toast is making like eyes at Bucket, and I'm assuming that Toast is a girl because Bucket is a guy, and I don't think Toast is gay. That's I could be wrong. What do I know? What do I know? My wife is going to be like, toast is not gay. Take
Don't
that back.
call him that. Yeah.
All right. Brian Bledsoe says, call me insane, but would you like to see Makari and Irishem, the judge again, Eternals, and Cersei, but that's because I'm a Gemma Chan stan. So he's saying, would you like to see Makari and Irishem, the judge from the Eternals? No, I don't want to see any of the characters from the
I don't want
Eternals
anything
again.
from Eternals.
I don't remember what Angelina Jolie's character, who she played, but she's the only one that I would give any time to.
Because that's Angelina Jolie.
Angelina
That's
Jolie.
why.
Gemma Chan is good, but in that movie, it was basically like taking Xanax. Everything about that movie was boring. She did show up randomly in the somebody will totally fact check me. It was either 2014 or 2016, I think, one of those two. They made a Jack Ryan movie with Chris Pine that literally nobody saw, and she ended up in that movie. All right. Shane H. Wilder says, award shows and red carpets are lame and gay.
True.
There you go. Adam says, I'm looking forward to the game Knight's Path.
Yeah, definitely very, very excited and funny story for anybody who knows what Knight's Path is in the sort of rivalry that has happened with 1348 Ex Voto. The demo released today to under 100 people. So a game that got millions and millions of views on social media for basically attacking the Knight's Path developers for not wanting to add politics in their game. They were like, we're going to go in the opposite direction and we are going to include politics and talk about politics, and well, their game flopped. So
Oh boy.
you get what you deserve.
You get what you deserve. All right. We've got Corey Anderson says, are you open to owning a capybara? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I would. He says he is too. Shane H. Wilder says, I'm at work, but I also can't play video games because they were one of the things I've given up for Lent. Along with all snacks and desserts, you are a brave soul, my friend. Brave soul. Corey Anderson says, how long does it take you to do your hair? I'm assuming he means you, because he's never asked me that question.
Not very long, to be honest.
You just wake up like this?
I've just gotten so good at it. It's just the way it goes.
My hair hasn't, like, I was actually supposed to get a haircut today, but I had to reschedule because now that the company's back, I'm doing IRL again. So it's
right.
Like, I always get my haircut on like a Thursday night. Now I'm back doing IRL on Thursday, so I had to reschedule. But for me, there are days where I wake up where just the left side of my hair just sticks up and doesn't want anything to do with lying flat. No idea why. No, it doesn't matter if you put pomade in it or not. It's just like, nah, it's not happening today.
That's the way it goes.
Pat the Plumber says, someone mentioned Unsleeved Media yesterday. The Quartering revived that channel a week or two ago. I did hear something about that.
Yeah.
He brought back, that's his Magic, that was his Magic the Gathering channel, right?
Yeah, it's too bad about Magic the Gathering. They destroyed themselves with the ideology that they're pushing, the people that they're hiring, and, outside IPs ruining sort of the identity of the game.
Yep. Shane H. Wilder says, don't forget the Switch 2. The Switch 2, many of the game carts are just glorified download codes.
The game key cards, right?
Yeah, and the game isn't even on there.
It is not.
Corey Anderson says, your thoughts on IP inclusion in Magic the Gathering?
Oh, I think I literally just basically answered that.
Yes, you
I think
did.
adding outside IPs is not smart.
All right. Winged Light says, did you see that Cedric, is it Chasang, who worked on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, posted a comment on a recent video on a channel called Gilo that criticized CD and the TR's future and airs out dirty laundry on CD?
I'm guessing CD's Crystal Dynamics and TR's Tomb Raider. I have not seen that, but I will look into it.
Topic for a video, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps.
All right. Corey Anderson says, I meant a Castlevania game made in the style of Elden Ring. And also, you left off is it Jaffe?
Yeah, David Jaffe.
You left off the Jaffe part on the super chat being critical of Vara.
Yeah, he's the original God of War creator, and he basically had a meltdown on his YouTube channel where he said, I only got popular because of my hair, my face, and my gender, so...
That's like the ultimate power to have that.
He's
guy,
like
right?
he's a male feminist, and he's very woke. He's got a trans child, so not very nice for him to be sexist on his YouTube account.
Well, they're
Jeez.
always happy to do that when it's somebody that disagrees with them.
Of course, yeah.
Right, make sure I got that one. Corey Anderson. Oh, no, we got that one. Pat the Plumber says Curse of Darkness was peak Castlevania.
Good.
Okay.
It is.
Greg Dubier says, Vara, thoughts on the Fallout TV show?
So my problem is, right, it's not very lore accurate. It does definitely make some changes, but I think as a show and like a specific project, it's not bad at all.
Cool.
Would I say I love it? No. Would I say I hate it? No. It feels like a Fallout world, but
Okay.
you know, it's another adaptation that I still think they could have done better. I'm somebody who definitely prefers things that are extremely lore accurate.
Okay. All right. Corey Anderson says, Vara, you can submit cute pics of your cats too. Yes. If you ever want your pets featured on Q Today, all you do is you tag me on X and you give the picture of the pet and use the hashtag PCC Pets. Supposedly hashtags don't work anymore, but I always use it to find the pictures.
Yeah, I don't really use hashtags, but
all right. Corey Anderson says Veronica Mars and Gilmore Girls are the best TV shows. I do love Veronica Mars. I don't care what anybody says. I thought the first few seasons of that show were a lot of fun. Spawn Freak says Zendaya's MJ would have gotten less backlash if she was a fun, flirty party girl and not a rude activist that always talks down to Peter. Well, she also just has that face. It's always like a...
Yeah.
I'm Team Zendaya these days, though, guys, because you know that she doesn't seem to complain much about people that complain about her, and I respect that.
She doesn't. That is true. It's something, I suppose.
I'm also...
It's like you were talking earlier about being too generous when really, like, a movie doesn't deserve that generosity. You're doing that same thing right now.
You know what my other one is? I said the statute of limitations has run out on Brie Larson. She hasn't said anything annoying in a while. So you know what?
She's true.
She
That's
served
a reset.
She served her time.
Until she comes out and makes like a extremely like Rachel Zegler level comment.
Look, if she does it, we'll address it then. But until we get to that point, she's out of the doghouse. Corey Anderson says, "Have you seen the 2002 movie Sorority Boys?" No, I have not. Nope. Corey Anderson says, "Vara, thoughts on Camilla Luddington's Lara Croft?"
So I mean, I like her. I know that she's the Survivor trilogy actor for anyone who doesn't know. I know that she's not going to be the Lara Croft going forward. It's Alex Wilton Reagan, I think her name is. She's doing Catalyst and Legacy of Atlantis, but I like her.
Corey Anderson says, Brett, are you forced to do IRL? No. I did switch to Thursdays, though. I like doing Thursdays rather than Wednesdays because that means, like, the next day is Friday. But I like, I should do it more. It's a great way to kind of get people to know about PCC. A lot of people get a chance to possibly, I don't know how much it actually, like, translates to new viewers considering there's such vastly different audiences. But I'll tell you one thing about it. There are definitely days where it's like I get done with this show and it's 5 p.m. I then go over and I start editing and I get the clips all edited. I have to upload to YouTube and Rumble. I get all the editing and the uploading done. It's like 6:30 because it's really easy to edit. You just have to, clip out the segments from the day. The way we do the way I run the show when we're live gives me all of the visual cues so I know right where to edit, right when we're doing it. It's very easy now. I've got it down to a science. So that doesn't take that long, but it takes about an hour and 20 minutes once everything's uploaded. And then I go straight over there and I do the pre-show on Discord. And then after that, you do IRL from 8 to 10. And then you do the post-show from 10 to 11. And that can be like, that's just a long day because I get here at 10 in the morning and I'm leaving at 11 o'clock at night. But I tell you what, when we're done, it's cathartic to have a space in which you can talk about politics for a bit, because I don't want to sit on the internet and argue with people about it. But I do enjoy getting on there, asking people questions because a lot of they know more than me, so I'll ask Phil questions or I'll ask Tim questions, and I do enjoy that. I think that's a lot of fun. I don't know if I would be able to do it 5 days a week. It would be like if I wasn't doing this, I could do it 5 days a week, but it would be difficult to do both shows 5 days a week. High Voltage 75 says, welcome back, Vara. Any thoughts or feelings or concerns on what was shown of Resident Evil 9 so far?
I mean, I'm of course biased because Resident Evil is one of my favorite video game franchises. I do think that they have stumbled with some of the recent games, like the remakes where they censor certain content. I'm excited for Resident Evil 9. I definitely, though, as we've talked about, cautiously optimistic. I hope that it is truly good. I hope it does not disappoint us, but I will not believe it until I see it, but I'll be streaming it next week.
Excellent. We got some Rumble rants, too. I want to make sure I don't skip these. So, Broody Gambit says they will release Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Well, they already did. Then Final Reckoning 2, then Final Reckoning 3, which is really 6, then jump to Final Reckoning 7. Well, no, wouldn't it be like the Reckoning, like the Final Reckoning? Like, it's like 2 Final, 2 Reckoning, something like that. There's got to be a better naming thing for that. All right. Scroll down here a little bit. We've got some more. Broody Gambit also says, why does Capcom hate Mega Man? He was practically the Mario for the company, but they haven't put out anything worthwhile aside from collections in well over a decade.
They just had announced a new Mega Man game at the Game Awards. I'd go watch a trailer. It looks pretty good.
Broody Gambit also says, what did you think of the Secret Level anthology on Amazon? Did you watch that?
It was fine. It felt more like marketing material for other shows. I wasn't wowed by it by any means.
He also adds, have you tried TMNT Splintered Fate? It is roguelike, which is usually a genre I don't like, but the IP helped a lot. I've had a blast through so many runs. Maybe Brett should try it.
I haven't tried that one, but I did really love Shredder's Revenge. That was fantastic.
All right, we got a couple more here. Back on YouTube, Shane says, Brett, when are you starting Scream Queens? Yes, I do have to watch the first season of Scream Queens. I'll probably start it over the weekend. So I usually designate Saturday mornings to watching like old movies. I get up early. Olivia's still asleep, so I'll watch like Rambo on a Saturday, which I did like the other week. Maybe I'll start Scream Queens this weekend. I'll do that. Retromeister says, did you guys watch the Disney show Gravity Falls? If so, do you think of it? What did you think of it, considering the show ended a decade ago this week? I feel like the finale was better than Stranger Things. They did this. He says, I feel like they did the finale better than Stranger Things did.
I did not watch it.
I did not either. I've heard the name.
I've heard of it, yeah,
but not one that I've seen. We have Disney Plus because her family has Disney Plus, and my wife's family has Disney Plus, and we never use it.
Yeah,
I used it.
Probably wouldn't use it either. Like, there's nothing good on it.
Tried No, I watch Alias on there every once in a while, but I have Alias on ad-free Tubi. But other than that, I'll rewatch Winter Soldier every once in a while, and that's about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, Pat the Plumber says, I'll say it again because I think you skipped it, but I'm not paying close attention, so sorry if I'm wrong, but Strong Belwas being left out of Game of Thrones was a travesty.
I think there were so many travesties with Game of Thrones. My number one element I will crash out about for hours is Lady Stoneheart. I'm heartbroken over that. I love Catelyn too much, but yeah, it is what it is, and it's not good.
There you go. We have a Chrissy Mayer in the chat with a super chat here. It says, more redheads. Love this. Can I do next week? Actually, Chrissy, how about the week after that? Because next week, Phil is going to be... Phil hasn't been on in ages, and Phil is going to be on next week in studio. If you're still live, Chrissy, I will send you a message about doing the Thursday after next Thursday. We will try to book out. Plus, you're a busy woman. Like, I'm sure you got stuff going on.
She is very busy.
We will get this figured out and have you on. Corey Anderson says, I think Camilla is a realistic Lara Croft. By the way, I'm sorry, but it's almost impossible. I almost always say Laura, even though I know it's Lara.
Yeah, it's like, Lara.
It's very hard to say the right way. I think Camilla is a realistic Lara Croft. Sophie Turner seems too turned up nose to be Laura. Turned up nose? What does that mean? Like
snobby?
Snobby?
Yeah, that's the way I would take it.
Okay. I understand Lara is aristocracy and lore. Sophie ain't it. Okay. Shane H. Wilder says, praying Tim doesn't go hard on the AI tonight. Yeah, if ever. So here's the strategy, guys. If you're ever on IRL and your voice is going, and you're like, I'm not sure if I can do this much longer. I don't know if I can talk all night. Just mention AI, and Tim will take it from there. He will talk the whole time about it.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yep. I can't think of anything, honestly. Like, I have no unique, like, every thought on AI is pretty much the same. And I don't mean that to be mean, but there's plenty of really, really great discussions that have been had about it. None of them have been from me, and none of my thoughts are unique enough to even feel like anybody would care. So,
yeah.
Corey Anderson says, Assassin's Creed is my favorite video game franchise. Haven't played the Japanese one. Should I?
I personally was not a fan of Assassin's Creed Shadows. I thought that it was not worth the price, and I don't think it was a terrible game. I just also don't think that it was Assassin's Creed.
Okay. All right.
And then, of course, you have the developers who said, oh, it's historically accurate, even though it clearly isn't.
It's not, yeah. Well, they, like, paid, like, I don't know if paid, but there were definitely, like, activist professors who got in on that discussion.
Oh, yeah, but they only picked biased professors who were going to promote their narrative.
Katie says, hi, everybody. Earlier tonight, I got my X blue check mark. Let's effing go. I've been ranting about the downfall of my country on X. Independent media rocks. Yes, she does. Katie is oftentimes on X talking about how much Australia sucks.
Australia does suck. I've had to talk a lot about Australia over the past couple of months because of a group called Collective Shout, who's trying to get video games censored.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Pop Culture Junkie says, Brett, agreed with you on Veronica Mars. I have a season 2 script autographed by the entire cast. Yeah, it's great. Like, it's so cheesy and fun and awesome. I do think that they played the relationship between Veronica and her dad a little bit weird at first. I'm not going to lie. I think it was a little bit weird. But all great actors that I love, and especially Enrico Colantani. Unfortunately, it's not on Hulu anymore. They only have the 2019 revival on Hulu, so that kind of sucks. You have to watch it on ad-free Tubi if you want to watch it. High Voltage 75 says, I still...
Hashtag not sponsored.
Exactly. High Voltage 75 says, I still wonder what Bob Saget knew. I don't know. I don't wonder what any of these people knew, except for maybe Chester Bennington, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Shane H. Wilder says, dog, no one even mentioned it. Tim has just been playing with AI toys all week to the point where I want him to get an intervention. Yeah, man. Like, tonight, like, my voice is going to crack and be like, break glass in case of emergency. And then I'll be like, so what do you think about AI? Broody Gambit over on Rumble says, my favorite video game franchises are Super Mario's, Mega Man, Tomb Raider, and Borderlands. Aside from Resident Evil, what are yours? Also, Mission Impossible was a Final Fantasy reference. Okay.
Yeah. Resident Evil, the Souls games, I love From Software. Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 were phenomenal. I really love the first 2 Baldur's Gate games. Baldur's Gate 3 was not good in my opinion. And those are the ones off the top of my head.
All right, last one here from Broody Gambit says, originally she was supposed to be Laura Cruz, but they changed it because that name sounded too American. Sorry. Okay. And last one here from, sorry, 2 more here from, there it is, from last one from Retromeister says, will Scream 7 recover from major franchise mistakes of the previous 2 films, which retconned Wes Craven's already established lore into fan fiction? Look, I remember nothing of 5 and 6. I love Scream 1. I love Scream 2. I kind of adore aspects of Scream 3. I think Scream 4 predicted the absolute, like, obsession people would have with becoming internet famous and do horrible things. In fact, I think it's worse now than they ever could have imagined it in Scream 4. Scream 7 is on sale. I can't predict whether they're going to retcon the retcons. I can say that the pre-sale tickets have continued to advance and do well, so bringing back Neve Campbell was obviously a very, very smart thing to do. All right.
Yep.
Guys, before we go, would you all please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. If you have not subscribed here yet already, please and thank you. Vara, make sure you tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me here on YouTube and X, Vara, Dark Titan Media. I live stream video games Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays.
I'm sorry. That was bad timing. I'm sorry.
That was good timing.
She's never gonna come back now. No. She's never gonna come back because that happened.
Exactly.
Continue.
You guys ruined it.
Continue.
So yeah, Vara, Dark Titan Media on YouTube and X. I live stream video games Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern. I do the FML podcast Monday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern. Vara Virtue Show Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. 2 to 3 videos a day, and I'll be on F&T tomorrow. So
Perfect.
that'll be cool.
Busy week as always.
Yeah.
All right, guys, if you would like to follow me, I am on Instagram and on X at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. We are here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is, of course, noon Pacific. We are on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify. If you would like to listen rather than just watch the show, you can also rate and review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, which is another great way to help this channel out. And if you want to follow us on social media, we are on Twix at popculture_show, Facebook at Pop Culture Crisis, Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. Remember, Colonel Kurtz will be back on the show tomorrow, and then the schedule will return back to normal next week. Mary will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Colonel Kurtz will be on Tuesday. We're going to have Phil and Gang in studio on Thursday, and it's just going to keep going, guys. So thank you all so much for all you do by watching the channel, all the support you give us. We wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. We will see you back here tomorrow with another episode. Later, everybody.